Hey, what's going on, folks? So vaccine expert Peter Hotez is in some hot water on Twitter because he's refusing to debate RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan's platform after Peter Hotez was trying to pressure Spotify into censoring or correcting Joe's podcast more. We'll get into it, but first, this is the guy that admitted that even though he's a health expert, he doesn't even take care of himself.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health.
What an utter clown. It's going to be a great story to talk about. Second, we're going to look at Democrat and professional Bernie coattail rider lady Nina Turner say, quote, "If someone says they're a woman, not a tough concept." Andrew Tate responded by saying he was a woman.
Tell us why.
Because I am. You don't believe me?
You're a woman?
Are you misgendering me?
According to Nina Turner's logic, that means he is one, because that's all you have to do is say you are one. I know that this cultural battle is getting annoying, but this story was too funny not to talk about. And thirdly, Ron Paul, one of the greatest congressmen we've ever had, came to the defense of Thomas Massie amongst the MAGA smear campaign, saying that he would have done the same thing.
But it's great to have Thomas speaking back to them, because he's going to do it in a dignified and an intellectual manner, and he's going to defend the principles of liberty while doing so.
And I know people like to be angry and emotional and think that they're just the good guy because they follow one politician and any influencer that rides his coattails, but you have to ask yourself, is this the same MAGA movement of 2018 and 2019? If a bunch of rabid influencers would be trying to kick Ron Paul out of the party right now if he disagreed on one ruling? It's insane and disgusting to me, but I'm starting to realize if you don't act like a 5-year-old child in politics and you have integrity, not just emotions and double standards, people won't like that. It's not going to be popular. That's just how things work. These are the stories of today, folks. I hope you stay tuned. It's going to be a fun show. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from our... What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. The first story is about this vaccine expert. His name is Peter Hotez, and Joe Rogan offered him $100,000 to debate RFK on his platform about vaccines. A bunch of other people threw in money, and now the total is well above $1 million. I think it's even over than $2 million now, of a bunch of people coming together, say, I'll throw in 100,000, whatever it takes to get this guy on Joe Rogan's platform to have a debate about vaccines. Before I tell you why this debate is happening, let's look at this guy, Peter Hotez, as he admits that he doesn't even take care of himself on Joe Rogan.
Do you take vitamins?
I don't take vitamins.
Really?
Yeah. I
Wow.
don't think they do. I don't think they're needed, because most in
What?
the American.
Hold up. You don't think they're needed while you're eating junk food?
Well, hopefully I'm not only eating junk food.
Okay,
right?
but you know there's a large body of clinical research on the efficacy of vitamins, especially vitamins D, vitamins B.
I have taken vitamin D for periods, on the recommendation of my intern.
So the vaccine expert says, no, I don't think vitamins are necessary. And Joe Rogan's like, well, vitamin D, there's clinical studies about it. He's like, oh, I've taken vitamin D based on what my interns told me. You're taking advice from your interns on vitamins after you say that they don't, like, what? This guy is such a clown. For a health expert, it's ridiculous. Let's watch another clip.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health, and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
Sometimes I just don't get it right. So sometimes you just don't get it right. You admit you don't get it right, but you really want to censor all competition because you're acting like you're too good to debate. Well, luckily, I have too much time on my hands based on my profession, which is video journalism now. So I made a compilation of all the times he admitted he was wrong on the Joe Rogan interview, and I put them together. So enjoy. Here's Peter Hotez, despite the fact that he doesn't want to debate, admitting that he does get it wrong sometimes and that Joe Rogan caught him right in his little tracks.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
like that mouth pleasure so much you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of
I
health.
am, yeah. I have to concede that's the case. Sometimes it's not all brain. It's something else.
Fantastic.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
What is going on with you, doctor?
You got it. You got it over me. Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right. I have to concede that's the case. You got it over me. You got it over me. You got it over me. Sometimes, man, I just don't get it.
The reason we're dunking on this guy is not because I just like everyone's perfect. Someone's like, they don't always get it right. Well, the thing is, he's trying to censor science and competition to his narrative. I'm going to read you why this debate's even happening. So it started when Professor Peter Hotez, MD, PhD, said on Twitter, Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation. It's really true, Anna Merlin, just awful. And from all the online attacks I'm receiving about this absurd podcast, it's clear many believe this nonsense. So he started it basically. And the funny thing is, Joe Rogan's actually had him on the show. Joe doesn't have to have this loser on his show, but Joe did that. He likes to get both sides of the debate. So Joe responds to him, basically trying to censor his podcast, and says, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I am offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. So Joe says, here's $100,000 to a charity of your choice and debate him and show the world why it's misinformation. Many people have jumped on. I believe it's over $1 million, $2 million now because everyone's throwing money at it, saying, I'll add money if this we would love a debate, please. Because what the establishment does, and people like Peter Hotez, they rely on authority or government or censorship, and then they act like it's true. They censor the opponents of lockdown. They censor anybody who countered Rachel Maddow, Joe Biden, and what was the other one? Rochelle Walensky's narrative about vaccine efficacy. The truth was censored and skepticism was censored, and that's how they operate. These people are such scum. It's not like, agree to disagree. It's like they destroy their competition, and then someone's offering millions of dollars. Hey, debate. We'll give money to a charity. Show the world why you're right. Show the world why you're better than RFK. He refuses to do it. So here's what he said, and Joe Rogan held him to it. Elon Musk jumped on. I think I call Mark Cuban Marxist Cuban, but Marxist Cuban took his side, of course, like a true Mark always will when push comes to shove. But anyway, Professor Peter Hotez responded, Joe, if you are serious about addressing vaccines, the fact that 200,000 unvaccinated Americans needly perished during our awful Delta BA1 COVID waves, including 40,000 in our state of Texas, because they fell victim to the vaccine misinformation, I want to have that discussion. Rogan responded, he said, again, I'm going to ask you very clearly, are you willing to debate Robert Kennedy Jr. on my podcast? Hotez said, Joe, you have my cell, my email. I'm always willing to speak with you. And Joe Rogan said, this is a non-answer. I challenge you publicly because you publicly quote tweeted and agreed with this dark dog shit Vice article. If you're really serious about what you stand for, you now have a massive opportunity for a debate that will reach the largest audience. And he goes on. And then Rogan said, by the way, I saw a tweet you deleted. And the tweet was from Peter Hotez. Be serious, Joe. That's what you throw out for hunting buddies on a weekend, a $50 million endowment, which you, Spotify, RFK Jr. can easily afford. Not for me, but so we can continue making low-cost, patent-free vaccines for the world's poor, preceded by RFK Jr.'s public apology. So millions of dollars is not enough. $100,000 not enough. He's like, I want $50 million. Basically, he's like, give $50 million to some random vaccine endowment so they can just keep doing what they're doing. This guy sucks. So I would say I felt very optimistic this weekend. I know a lot of this stuff is circus and some people maybe are not so optimistic, but it seems like because Elon Musk bought Twitter and they're not censoring as much as, say, YouTube, who just removed, a podcast of Jordan Peterson and RFK Jr. They removed it and said it was vaccine misinformation. Facebook and Instagram have terrible track records with that stuff. TikTok banned my account. I'm not even sure why. So the fact that Twitter is now owned by a billionaire that does care about free speech a little more, it seems like they're using this rare window of time. Yes, there's Rumble and BitChute, but Twitter's bigger at this point, to be like, hey, we're going to flex the power that we have, the Rogans, the Elons of the world, and be like, you need to debate this topic. Stop trying to censor us. Stop snitching. Stop acting like you're too good to even have a conversation. I wish I had the video of Carrie Mullis. It's got deleted multiple times. but Kerry Mullis was the inventor of the PCR test. All right. This guy wasn't a loser. He wasn't just some random podcaster. He had a Nobel Prize for inventing the PCR test that they shoved up their nose. And Anthony Fauci used to refuse to debate him. He said Anthony Fauci was a liar. He would debate him anywhere, any place. And they've been doing this for decades. They act like they're too above you. The government and the establishment say, oh, we are the science. Well, if you're the science, Anthony Fauci, how come you didn't invent the PCR test? How come Kerry Mullis did? I don't think he's just a podcaster or a person like me. This guy was like a real scientist, somebody that discovered something that they still use, and they wouldn't even let him debate. So this is the age-old establishment way of getting out of this stuff. They use the government. I've explained in a Twitter thread yesterday for those who want to learn how Operation Warp Speed worked, because they had an emergency because of COVID. And then all of a sudden they have no liability for side effects and adverse events from their vaccine. So when you watch television commercials of Big Pharma, they tell about all the side effects, this, and this. Talk to your doctor. It might not be worth it. There's some pills that they say, if you had a vaccine, talk to your doctor. This might not be for you. This might not be for pregnant women, this and that. Every commercial's like that, because all of these Big Pharma objects, or I would say products is a better word than objects, they have side effects and they know that. But with the vaccine and the Warp Speed rush out, because of the emergency and something called the PrEP Act, they don't have liability for that. So if Rachel Maddow deceives you, or Peter Hotez deceives you, or Biden or Trump, or anyone you want to blame, Rochelle Walensky, they don't have to pay for misleading you. Whereas on a commercial, you do have to pay for misleading people. So you have to tell them everything that could happen. It's like a huge, huge scandal, in my opinion, and just a liability shield that's gone too far. So it just really bothers me, like it bothers a lot of people, that they were able to lock down. The government funds the vaccines. They're free because it was a whole socialist scheme from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. The government buys their doses. The whole thing was socialism. The whole thing was government tyranny. And people like Peter Hotez just feel so above everyone else because he knows that the little minions at YouTube and Facebook and TikTok will delete people who question their narrative. So they get to get government funding. I'm not saying Peter Hotez himself, but for the products, all of this corruption from front to back. And then they get to sit there and act holier than thou while they smear everybody who disagrees with them. So I could talk about this forever, but I want to really sum it up. God bless everybody who's trying to get this guy to debate, because whether you're on this side or this side of the vaccine debate, there should be a discussion about it. They've spent decades smearing people like RFK Jr., and they spent a couple years smearing anybody who tried to stand up for themselves. The least we could get is a debate. And I have to say, I'm not saying I'm a pessimistic person, but on this topic, I felt very optimistic this week because it felt like so many people cared about it. It felt like the tides were turning. It felt like on Twitter, they can't hide anymore behind censorship and lies and character smears and words like anti-vaxxer that have become like the racist of the medical community. They just say to anybody who questions them on any level, even if you're just against mandates. And now the public tide is shifting against people like Peter Hotez. And I saw someone ask him a question near his house. I thought that was pretty lame. To follow the guy to the house, that was a pretty scummy move. We didn't need to do that, or whoever did that didn't need to do it. But you get what I'm saying? I feel like the tides are really turning, and these people can't just weasel their way out of having these type of conversations anymore. And I'm glad to see Elon, Rogan, Patrick Bet-David, myself, others really stand firm and say, it's time for you to debate, buddy. You've done enough. And I mean, I'm just going to play this clip again. You don't even take care of yourself. What type of all the health experts look like they crawled out of a crypt, all of them. It's like they crawled out of a graveyard and they're out here looking like, you know what I'm saying? Like pimples and stuff, acting like they're going to tell everybody how to live their life. If you're so good at health and all this stuff, why don't you take care of yourself, Peter?
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health, and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone.
I have the full clip on my Twitter. If you want to see Joe Rogan just go after this guy for 4 minutes and be like, how in the world could you be a health expert and you don't even take care of yourself? Isn't that a little hypocritical? And he's like, yeah, I guess. Well, if you just push the establishment and the big pharma line, you don't actually need to take care of yourself or care about health, because you could just virtue signal and act like you're doing that. So I have two more stories, folks. The second one is going to be about Andrew Tate calling himself a woman after Nina Turner says all it takes is that. And then the third one is Ron Paul stands up for Thomas Massie. Huge moment. But real quick, I very rarely run sponsors, but I want to do this real quick for you guys because this is the type of stuff that allows me to speak freely and not have to depend on just things like Patreon and Facebook. So real quick, I just want to show you, this is American Hartford Gold. They've been sponsoring me for the month on my videos, and they have gold and silver. They're one of the largest retail gold and silver dealer in America. They have thousands of 5-star reviews. One of the only firms that offer a no fee buyback commitment, free shipping, free insurance, tax-free transaction. You know what gold and silver is. I don't have to tell you. They do it. They'll give it to you. It's trustworthy. It's easy. They'll buy it back. They've done almost $2 billion in gold and silver. And I'm just going to play that one more time real quick because it has the number on the bottom. If you would like and you want to hear more about it, no commitment, but call 844-399-2448 or text DREAM to 65532. That's text DREAM to 65532. I just want to show you real quick. They got little coins like this. They just sent it to me. So gold, silver, you get it. I'm not going to sell you some sort of like panic mode, like we're all going to die, go buy gold and silver. It is what it is. If you want to invest in that and not real estate, the market's shaky. Obviously, crypto has pros and cons. Everything does. Gold and silver is something that everybody knows what it is. Some people want to store value in it. And if you've never known where to get it or how to get it safely, check out American Hartford Gold. The link is in the bio, and so is the text or email if you'd prefer that. So American Hartford Gold, thank you guys for letting me say whatever I want and showing love to the show because it's hard. I'm very picky with stuff that I sponsor. I'll turn down anything if I don't believe in it. But when it comes to gold and silver, what's there really not to believe? It's easy. You guys get it. Check it out. Thanks for everybody hitting them up. Helps the show a lot. All right. I want to play this clip real quick. I did an Instagram reel of it, but Nina Turner has a new definition for what is a woman. And she's not just a nobody or a professor. She's like a high-ranking Democrat Bernie lady who's like a leader in the progressive movement. And I just wonder if she even believes herself. Let's take a watch. I got the sauce here. All right, so Nina Turner recently said, "Hey, Ron DeSantis, please define woke and don't use that cultural Marxism line because that means nothing. If you're going to have a war on something, say what you mean." To which someone responded, "Define woman." And Nina Turner responded, "If someone says they're a woman, they're a woman. Not a tough concept." Andrew Tate took that as a challenge and has defined himself a woman.
All of a sudden you put in your profile, obviously I joked about it, you're the most Googled woman on earth, that was based on your Twitter profile. Nina Turner comes out and says, if somebody says they're a woman, not a tough concept. Your response is, I'm a woman, right? You do that. And you've left it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Because I am. You don't believe me?
You're a woman?
Are you misgendering me?
According to Nina Turner's logic, that means he is one. And I'm not trying to throw fuel on the fire that is this cultural battle. It's annoying. I think a lot of people are annoyed by it. But Nina Turner's not just someone random. She's a high-ranking, well-respected, progressive Bernie Democrat. And she's really trying to act like if someone just says it, that means that it is. Personally, I think a lot of people are tired of the slippery slope. It's just getting kind of ridiculous, cringe, and so obviously overblown. But at the same time, they don't want to associate themselves with a lot of Republicans and conservatives. Even though I think a lot of people are quietly starting to agree, the left-wing narrative around it is just getting goofy. Let me know what you guys think. God bless you and thanks for... So Nina Turner, I don't like to just pour fuel on the cultural battle over this. I understand it's getting annoying and people fight over it every day. I just find it hilarious, and just Nina Turner annoys the crap out of me, to be honest. She's so fake, but she's got her moments of realness, but most of the part she's fake. She basically said it's not a tough concept. If you say you're a woman, you're a woman. Like, do you believe that, Nina Turner? Is that really where we're going? If I say I'm a cat, am I a cat? If I say I'm a wall, am I a wall? I understand. I have compassion to understand when people do disagree, but they're making somewhat of logical sense. Like, if you do this, this, and this, it makes you this. And it's like, I don't have to agree, but at least I could be like, all right, that person's trying. They're trying to put something together on this weird puzzle piece that is humanity. But like Nina Turner, it's like, if you just say you're a woman, you're a woman. It's not a tough concept. My question to my audience is, do you think Nina Turner actually believes that? Because this is this weird psychological thing I have in my head. I'm wondering, it's happening on all sides of politics, but especially the left. Do they actually believe that? part of me feels like their head's so far up their own behind that they do. The other part of me is like, they have to know they're lying. Like behind closed doors, a few drinks, they're like, yeah, I'm full of shit, but I got to because I don't want to get like attacked by the mob. Which is it? Because if you were like, hey, if you get all these parts and do this and rearrange your body, like you're a woman, and it's like, I'm not saying you have to agree with that. I'm just saying it makes a little more sense than if like, it's just like, if you just say you are, you are. So then Andrew Tate said, I am that. And then it's like, well, according to her logic, that would be true, but everyone knows it's not true. Let me know what you think. I want to say this too. I posted that as an Instagram reel to my Instagram. And some chick comes out and she's like, oh, if you support Andrew Tate, you're a misogynist. I mean, are you really going to do that to your audience? And I have a few things to say. First of all, if you watched what I just showed you, which I hope you did if you were here, did I support Andrew Tate in that video? I'm going to get to what I actually think about Andrew Tate in a second, but it's like, I literally just played a clip for educational purposes. Nina Turner says, just call yourself a woman and that makes you a woman. Andrew Tate says, well, I'm a woman. I'm taking Nina Turner's bait and I'm calling myself a woman. Where in that video am I just drooling support for Andrew Tate? I'm just using it as an example to make the point of my story. So this is really starting to bother me about Trump, DeSantis, like this guy, that guy, Tate, like, like the brainwashing. And I know that America's suffering, especially because of the lockdowns and technology, but it's getting more and more apparent how many people are like broken because you can't say anything anymore. It's like, I disagree with one thing Trump says, then I must like Biden, even though that's not true. Thomas Massey has voted against Biden more than I think anyone else in Congress, but now he's a rhino and he's a Democrat, even though his track record's better than anyone else when it comes to opposing Democrats and the Biden regime. It's like, this is the world we live in now. You just can't say anything. I get why people are tuning out of politics. It's toxic. The left is toxic. The right is toxic. The MAGA movements become toxic. Some DeSantis influencers are toxic. It's just a gross world where people act like children. And you're better off telling your 5-year-old that Santa Claus isn't real than you are telling the Democratic Party that their party's corrupt, or a Trump supporter that Trump isn't really that much different than DeSantis. Like, it's literally easier to tell a kid that the tooth fairy's not real. She'll cry for 5 minutes and then she'll get over it and the day's on. It's such a fake world that we're living in. But the thing is, I just find it so funny. I post one thing and people are freaking out. It's like, I can't even post a video of Andrew Tate. That's what triggers people. It's insane. And when it comes to supporting him, like any man would say, it's like, I'm not Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's not me. Andrew Tate's not responsible for everything I've ever said or done. I'm not responsible for what he said or done. But as far as, do I like him? Yeah, I think he's wildly interesting to listen to. Do we live the same type of lifestyle? We don't. So we have disagreements there, but I don't hate him for it. There's some things that I've seen that I'm like, I wouldn't have done that, or I don't like that. But it's like, is this the world we live in? Do I have to sit here and condemn everything he's ever said, or else I'm a massive supporter of everything he's ever done? And I'm not condemning him. And this isn't like a fence sitting. It's just, that's the truth. It's like, I like listening to him. I've never been shy about it. He's interesting. He's intriguing. Most of the people who cry about him couldn't light a candle to how interesting and thought-provoking a lot of stuff he says are. I definitely don't dislike him. So that's where I stand with it. But as far as like, people got to run to me and be like, what about this? It's like, I've never even seen that. Or if, it's just so crazy. But when it comes to the woman stuff and like, what is a woman? I think that most people get it. Most Democrats get it. Most apolitical people get it. I follow sports pages and I see that as the litmus test for people who don't care about politics. It's not right-wing sports watchers. It's not left. Everybody watches sports. And the comment section is like filled with people who sound like right-wingers and conservatives. Whenever they post Brittany Griner or WNBA, or they try to push the rainbow flag too much, everybody sounds like conservatives, even if they're not conservative, because most people are tired of it. What I see is, though, people are not trying to attach themselves to Republicans or Trump or influencers, so they kind of just believe it and don't say much. I've had multiple Democrats reach out to me and say, What is a Woman is an amazing documentary. It's so crazy, but they're not like tweeting about it publicly, and they don't like Trump, and they probably don't even really like DeSantis that much. They just agree culturally with this. So to me, this is such a winnable issue for conservatives if they play their cards right. I'm not saying to back down. I'm not saying to compromise your values, but in my opinion, a lot of Republican influencers, they lack compassion, empathy, and they're just annoying. So, they're going to ruin this opportunity to really win this cultural battle even bigger. I think it'll be won anyway because it's basic truth and human nature. So no matter who does what, eventually the truth will rise the ranks. And, people like Nina Turner are just making a mockery of it. It just gets dumber and dumber and dumber to the point where that's really her idea of what is a woman. It's just, you just say you are. Is that how it works? If I say it, I just turn into one? Yeah, you don't have to change anything or do anything. It has nothing to do with biology or body parts or like what. None of that. None of that even comes into your head. You just got to say it. So I'm a wall. I'm a light post. No, like how fake are these people going to be? They're just digging themselves in a deeper hole, which is where you have to be if you're on that side of the debate, because it doesn't really make sense. So in order to keep perpetuating stuff, you got to just keep digging yourself in a hole. Nina Turner is a phony. She's got some good points, but for the most part, she's like every other progressive now, where they have no mind of their own. If you have a mind of your own, you're probably watching Russell Brand or listening to Rogan or something. But the ones that are still in that mind frame of like, I have to wear my mask, I can't question vaccines, Bernie's going to scam me for a third time, but I'll still donate to him. It's like, how many times does Bernie Sanders need to stab you in the back for the Democrat establishment until you realize that he is the Democrat establishment? He's the not so obvious establishment. I fell for it for a few months too, but I really quickly learned as soon as, he changed tune, and I'm like, okay, this guy's a phony. But Nina Turner's like, a sheep wrangler, just being like, come with us, patriots, and $25 minimum wage. Like, why not $400, huh? Why not $1,000 minimum wage? Why you're just gonna, whatever. But that's her take on what a woman is. You just say you are, and you are. Funny to see Andrew Tate counter that. And I haven't watched his full podcast with PBD yet, but I'll probably check it out at some point, because regardless of what people think about Andrew Tate, he's fascinating to listen to. There's a reason he's so successful and famous. And personally, I think he got framed in Romania. I think they're hyping up charges because he's an establishment threat. I don't think he's out there doing that craziest stuff to girls. I don't think he's doing the smartest stuff, but I think they're hyping up and trumping up their charges and trying to find something on him because he has such a impact on young men, and he's telling young men to not be so weak and pathetic. And even if you don't agree with his stances as a Christian or whatever, he's countering the left-wing weakness narrative, and he's been more successful than anyone else, and they hate that. So I don't dislike Andrew Tate. I know some people do. They freak out, they cry. I love listening to what he has to say. I think he's funny, and I don't think they're going after him because he's a bad guy. I think they're going after him because he is giving young men something better than weakness and pharmacy pills. That's my take on it. Let me know yours in the comment section. Last story I'm going to talk about is Thomas Massie and Rand Paul. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. DC Drano seems to be like the Trump supporter or the MAGA influencer who has been wrangling his emotional base and weaponizing them against Thomas Massie, trying to convince his base that Thomas Massie's the worst person in Congress. He's a rhino. He's a traitor. And someone like Drano that I like, I've met him in person. I used to think he was a good person. Now it's just like he's a hypocrite. He has double standards. He'll post Photoshop pictures of Thomas Massie endorsing Mitch McConnell. Apparently, Thomas Massie proved that he wiped out the Trump part of that because Trump was in on it too. And Trump obviously also endorsed Mitch McConnell in 2020. So all I'm asking for is, like, if you think that endorsing Mitch McConnell makes you a traitor, then Donald Trump's also a traitor because he also did it. But people like DC Drano, it's 100% weaponized against anybody who ever questions Trump. 0% humility, 0% lowering the ego, just trying to whip the power that he's achieved at good people like Thomas Massie for having the gall to oppose what everyone else is doing, because Thomas Massie, unlike him and others, is not a follower and can't be bullied or shamed into just following the left or the right when he feels like they're going on the wrong path. You don't have to agree with what he did, but I think it's just shameful that the MAGA movement's now trying to brainwash their emotional supporters into thinking Thomas Massie is a bad part of Congress, when in reality, he's one of the best members of Congress. If all of Congress was Thomas Massie, this country would be a great place. If all of Congress was Thomas Massie versus all of Congress was Donald Trump, I would take the Thomas Massie Congress 10 times out of 10. He has way more intellect and integrity than Trump has. And I just can't believe that's how far the movement's fallen, that they're trying to bully Thomas Massie out again, the second time. Trump tried to do it in 2020. It didn't work. here's Ron Paul. His voice is a little croaky. He's very old now. But here's Ron Paul coming to his defense and basically showing that if Ron Paul were still in Congress, the modern day fallen MAGA movement would be trying to kick Ron Paul out of Congress too, because he agrees with Thomas Massie on the Adam Schiff censure fine, which is not something that they do.
Can you imagine what it would be like if this got out of control? So the speaker comes in each morning, okay, A, B, C, D, we have 10 people that just got fined, and this is what you have to pay. Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to write you a check. Oh, we'll just deduct it from your pay. Yeah. It's not a very good precedent to set. And this whole thing, that was my first question when you
I remember you said
discovered it. I said, you know, I don't think I've ever heard of that, especially when I was there. I said, I'll think that through, but it didn't take too long for me to realize that's not solving any problems. You know, it's opening up the door to more chaos.
It seemed weird, and one of the commenters under, you know, and Massey's getting trashed by people because they're just full of emotion. They don't understand that he votes with the Constitution, whether his heart is in favor of censuring or not Adam Schiff. Someone else put this up. I don't know if you think this is relevant, Dr. Paul, but someone pointed out that he believes this is almost like a bill of attainder. You can put that next clip up. This is from Cornell Law School. A bill of attainder is a piece of legislation that declares a party guilty of a crime. Bills of attainder allow the government to punish a party for a perceived crime without going through the trial process. So this other person claims that, you know, it's the legislative branch acting as the judicial branch and you know, convicting him of a crime and giving him a fine for it.
And the bill of attainder is usually targeting a person for a political reason. And that's what that is. A very, very bad precedent. But it's great to have Thomas speaking back to them, because he's going to do it in a dignified and an intellectual manner, and he's going to defend the principles of liberty while doing so.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, the people that were hypercritical of him, and there are a lot of them, they acted on emotion. I think he's taking a big hit, but I think our verdict is going to be he voted the right way.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's a huge cosign from Ron Paul. You know, he said Thomas Massie did the right thing and he's glad he's there. And, you know, Thomas Massie is, love him or hate him, the closest thing to a Ron Paul in Congress. He cannot be purchased, not by the Israel lobby. He can't be purchased by Big Pharma. You know, he might have voted a way that you don't agree with. I know a lot of people are talking about the debt ceiling, but, you know, time and time again, Thomas Massie proves that he's willing to be the only one to vote no on something. And most of the time, I've noticed that he's usually right. When he's alone, it's like a speech thing or like things that everybody just does because they go along with the herd, and he'll stand up to both. Someone pointed out that Massie apparently, I don't know if this is Joe Biden during office or just like Biden as he was a congressman or whatever Biden used to be. I know he was vice president for a while and he also served in government. But they brought up that Thomas Massie has one of the best, if not the best, voting record against Joe Biden. Like, he's consistently voted against Biden more than anyone else in Congress. And they pulled up that. And it's just wild because if people don't like that he voted that way, I understand. If people don't care about the Constitution as much as him and they don't see it that way, or they have a constitutional disagreement, I understand that. But to try to weaponize your emotional rabid base like Cat Turd and DC Drano and just turn them against Thomas Massie for this thing and these standards that your guy, Donald Trump, can't even stand up to, it just shows that the right has become the left. What made the left so fake? They have no core values. They're easily emotionally manipulated. They're hypocrites. They have double standards and selective outrage. And that's what made the left so annoying. They've lost their principles, double standards, hypocrites, selective outrage, too emotional. Copy paste exactly what I said. That's the modern day MAGA movement now. Not everyone who votes for Trump, but people like Cat Turd and Drano, they can't live up to the same standards that they're trying to whip against Massie and kick him out of the party, despite the fact that he's one of the best, if not the best, congressman. For example, you know, if they're so upset at that, why are they not upset that Trump took $100 million plus from corporations, including $1 million from Pfizer, and hired a bunch of swampers, including Mitch McConnell's wife and pharmacy lobbyists? How come they're not mad that Thomas Massie was the only one who tried to stop socialism from coming to our country and spoke out about the CARES Act? How about the fact that Trump still in 2023 is on television saying that he thinks that his vaccine saved 100 million lives, and he's been downplaying vaccine injuries, acting like they don't exist? If Thomas Massie did that, DC Drano and Cat Turd would be foaming at the mouth and getting their emotional base to go after Thomas Massie. He's covering up vaccine injuries. He's lying about the vaccine. But if Trump does it, all of a sudden they have nothing to say. So what does that mean? They're hypocrites. They have double standards. You know, he's posting photoshopped images that are covering up the Trump part of the Mitch McConnell rally with Massie and saying, look, Massie endorsed Mitch McConnell. He's a rhino. We got to throw him out. Trump also endorsed Mitch McConnell. He said, I give him my full and total endorsement in 2020. He also endorsed Mitt Romney in 2018. Trump did. I don't think Thomas Massie was that stupid to endorse Mitt Romney. But all I'm saying is I'm not saying you got to hate Donald Trump or throw him out or, you know, like go angry at him. It's just have the same standards. Have the same standards for Donald Trump and every other congressman that you have for Massie. And if, you know, Thomas Massie was the only one who was right about the CARES Act and the socialist COVID scam, give him a little bit of credit. Be like, well, he was right when Trump was wrong about that. He was right when all of Congress bowed down. He was the only one who stood up against that. So this has become the movement. It's no longer a movement that I thought it was. It's a movement of emotional, angry, double standard, opportunist hypocrites who are using their power and ego to try to get their base to hate Thomas Massie when he's one of the better people in Congress. And it's just so fake. So, you know, I agree with Ron Paul. I agree with Thomas Massie. If Ron Paul were in Congress, MAGA would be trying to kick him out right now. That's the MAGA movement. They don't have principles. They don't stand on common ground. It's basically a religion around Donald Trump, where if he does things that are 10 times as bad as Thomas Massie, you have to ignore it. You have to cover it up. You have to look the other way. You have to make excuses for it. But if Thomas Massie does something that's not even a top 10 bad thing that Trump did, then you have to go after him. They'd be going after Ron Paul right now if Ron Paul were still in the movement. That's MAGA. That's what MAGA is. That's how principled they are. Ron Paul's the problem. Thomas Massie's the problem. But not us when we don't have the same standards for our guy that we have for others. And, you know, it is what it is, but it's just something to get used to. If you're going to pay attention to politics, you know, it's very, very odd. Someone said Massie is a clown. Why? Because he voted the way you didn't want him to vote. That's fine. But, you know, I tweeted out because people keep writing the same 3 things in my comment section. And I'm going to do a whole report on it because I want to talk about Soros and their connections to Trump and DeSantis and all this sort of stuff because everyone keeps talking about it. So I tweeted, listen to this, folks. I said, all right, I have a proof that Trump took money from George Soros. For one of his properties, he took a lot of money from George Soros in the past, and there's multiple articles about it. So I know that Trump has taken money from George Soros. Of course, people don't care about that because they're hypocrites. But anyway, I'm like, when has DeSantis taken money from George Soros? When did George Soros back DeSantis? I keep hearing that. So I said, for journalistic reasons, show me the proof. Show me the proof that DeSantis took money from Soros like Trump had taken money from Soros back in the day, and I'll report on both of them. I try to do objective analysis. I've left it up there, and not a single person could show me proof. They've showed proof that someone who used to work for Soros was at a dinner with DeSantis. I guess that would be similar to, you know, Vivek used to work for some sort of Daisy Soros Foundation or something. You know, it's like this 6 degree of separation, or like this person used to work there, left and went there. I understand that's not great. That's worth calling out. But basically, it's like, I'm like, give me full blown proof that DeSantis is literally giving money to DeSantis because I want to report on that. And no one can do it. It's insane. And they start getting mad. One guy said to me, I don't need to show you proof because I know that every single one of his campaign people is a Bush person. He's a Bush person, and every single person in the DeSantis campaign is a Bush person. So I said, okay, can you show me proof that it's not true that every single person in his campaign is a Bush person, but can you show me that? And he's like, no. And I said, can you show me 5 people? Because you said everyone, which is not true, but can you show me 5 people around DeSantis that are from the Bush? He couldn't. I said, can you show me 3? Can you even name 1 or 2? And he couldn't do it. And he's like, oh, that's a rhetorical trick. And I'm like, it's not a trick. I do journalism. If you could show me that every single person in DeSantis's campaign is a Bush person, I'll report it. If you could show me 5, I'll do it. But he couldn't even show me 3 because here's the thing. He's never even thought to research it. People are just repeating what they hear. 1 out of every 3 comments on my Instagram now is Soros-backed DeSantis. Show me proof. They don't have proof. Soros said that he thinks DeSantis is going to win the nominee, just like Gavin Newsom said Trump's going to win the nominee. Politico put out an article that Alexander Soros retweeted that said that DeSantis isn't Trump, basically saying that DeSantis will never be as big as Trump. So there's both sides are saying, oh, we think this person's going to win. We think this person's going to win. But this is what MAGA has become now. And I'm not happy about it because these are my former allies of people that I used to respect and trust. But now it's become like you just pull the string and they say the same 6 things on loop. They call you a rhino, even if you don't do anything. They call you a sellout, even if you can prove that Trump took money and you didn't take money. They call you a traitor when you vote with the Constitution. They're mad at Ron Paul. They're mad at Thomas Massie for things that are less than Trump has done. They just regurgitate the same 3 fake talking points and can't even prove it. It's insane. It's like a MAGA has been psyoped into becoming like drooling, like hypocrites. It's bizarre. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a comment I've seen a few times too. They're like, I'm never getting behind DeSantis because Hillary Clinton endorsed him. And I'm like, that's never happened. I'm not saying you can't vote for Trump. I'm not saying you have to trust DeSantis. You shouldn't trust DeSantis. Why would you trust a politician? I'm not asking you to trust DeSantis. I'm asking you to tell the truth, which for some reason MAGA just can't do anymore. They think they're too above being honest and having integrity. It's like Hillary Clinton never endorsed Ron DeSantis. That was a deep fake. It was literally a deep fake video of Hillary pretending to endorse DeSantis. It's not real. All I'm saying is if you want to vote for Trump because of his foreign policy, that makes sense. But if you're going to vote for Trump because you fell for a deep fake about Hillary Clinton and DeSantis, that seems like a pretty stupid reason, in my opinion. But your vote counts as much as mine, and it counts just as much as the Democrat who watches CNN who votes for Joe Biden because he thinks he's presidential. Like, all our votes are equal. I get it, but it doesn't make it real. You get what I'm saying? It's nuts, and that's where people are at. I think MAGA has been programmed and conditioned to just repeat the same 7 phrases on loop. And if you force them to think about what they're saying or prove what they're saying, they freak out at you. Someone says Sheldon Adelson, Trump/casino. Well, yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. It's like, if you're mad that DeSantis is taking money from Ken Griffin, I'm glad you're figuring out how politics work. It's like with DeSantis, people get how politics work. With Trump, they're oblivious. He like wiped their brain like Men in Black. With Ken Griffin, he gives money to DeSantis. Why? I'm sure he wants something in return, like everybody who lobbies politicians. So when Ken Griffin gives money to DeSantis, everyone says, well, that proves he's a snake and a rhino. Well, all I'm saying is you're acting like Trump also doesn't take donor money. Trump took over $100 million from corporations his first term, including Pfizer and a bunch of other big corporations. Trump took money from Sheldon Adelson after telling people that he'd never take money. He said that Sheldon Adelson would turn Rubio into a puppet, and Trump kept telling everybody on the campaign trail he doesn't need their money. He's so rich. I can't be corrupted. I can't be bought out. I don't need their money. That was a campaign thing. It's just like a lot of things like lock her up, and it's not real. Trump said he wouldn't take their money, but he did take their money. So I'm not emotional. I'll say Trump takes donor money. DeSantis takes donor money. Jeb Bush is behind DeSantis. Lindsey Graham is behind Donald Trump. They both have pros and cons, but Trump is in no way, shape, or form above all these things that they're criticizing DeSantis of. The difference is I'm willing to call out both sides and be like, yeah, that's what it is. But the Trump influencers, they just repeat the same 5 phrases. Like, they're ready to rip Thomas Massie's head off for endorsing Mitch McConnell. But Donald Trump also endorsed Mitch McConnell. Why don't they care? Because they're hypocrites. They're hyenas at this point. They're just rabid, emotional creatures that just freak out and don't have the same standards for their own politicians. And I just want to say, because everybody's always like, well, what's the solution? What's the solution? You know, just being like a normal person that's willing to call it out as you see it. Politicians are public servants. Politicians are supposed to serve you. The Republican Party is supposed to actually do what you want sometimes when you vote for them. So if DeSantis gets out of line, call it out. If Trump gets out of line, call it out. If you think taking donor money equals selling out, call it out. If you see that it happens, call it out. But the difference is Trump has people under a spell. If I could prove that Thomas Massie took $1 million from Pfizer, people would be freaking out, and Drano would have posted it 15 times. But it wasn't Thomas Massie who took $1 million from Pfizer. It was Donald Trump. And Kentucky Republicans and Mitch McConnell did take $1 million from Pfizer. So call them all out. Call it all out. Be like, they're all taking money and selling out. But the thing is, if DeSantis sells out, he sells out. If Trump sells out, he never sold out. It doesn't happen. It doesn't matter. People are delusional. So it almost feels like this is how they're going to scam Republicans, is because this guy has people under a spell. I like the fact that people call out DeSantis. I like the fact that people are paying attention. Just be honest about it. Just because you like Trump doesn't mean you could just repeat 5 things on loop, lie, believe deep fakes, believe things that you heard that you've never even questioned, and that means that you're right. That doesn't make you right. It just means you're a follower and you've been programmed and conditioned by what Trump says. You haven't even challenged it or thought about it. You keep just saying it over and over and over again. So it's just, that's the solution. It's like, if DeSantis gets in, keep an eye on what he does and use the power of not just voting, but your support and your voice to make sure that you hold him accountable if he goes out of line. This is how I've seen it for years now. If DeSantis does something, they'll bite his head off. If Thomas Massie does something, they'll bite his head off. They'll bite Thomas Massie's head off for being right, and they'll bite Ron DeSantis' head off for challenging Trump from the right, more than they'll challenge Trump if he does something wrong. Like, in the MAGA movement, you're better off being wrong. You're better off lying. You're better off doing socialism. You're better off being a communist who likes and supports everything Donald Trump does than being a libertarian or a principled conservative that disagrees with him on a few topics. Like, it's not a movement based on integrity anymore. It's not a movement based on conservative values. It's a movement based on worshiping one guy and freaking out at anybody who ever challenges them, even if they're right. You're better off being wrong on his side than right against them in this movement. That's what it's become. So in general, that's where I'm at with it. It seems like he's the most dangerous politician, not because he's so bad, not because his leadership's going to be so bad. It's not going to be worse than Joe Biden. It'll be better. He's become the most dangerous leader because he's wiped the brains of like hundreds of millions of people to the fact where he can literally do anything and they won't see it the same as if someone else does it. I had a debate with Red Eagle Patriot. I posted it this morning where I showed that in 2018, Bill Gates had a meeting with Donald Trump, and in 2019, he rolled it out through executive order. Could you imagine if Thomas Massie had a meeting with Bill Gates and then did exactly what Bill Gates told him to do? Drano and Catturd would be posting about it 1,000 times. Oh my gosh, Thomas Massie's working with Bill Gates. But when Donald Trump does it, we just have to pretend like it doesn't exist because this is a fake movement now. It's a controlled, just emotional echo chamber so they can exploit you and use you for a political agenda. I had the debate with Red Eagle Patriot, and I said, if I prove that DeSantis did that, would you have the same compassion you have with Trump saying like, oh, I bet he got tricked? And the guy said, no, I wouldn't. I would say that DeSantis is corrupt and sold out. And it's like, thank you for proving my point. You don't have actual thoughts anymore. It's just like one-sided, lopsided worship. So that's kind of the point I'm getting to is I don't really, at this point, I think that Trump and DeSantis both take donor money. I think that Trump and DeSantis both should be challenged. I think that Trump already had 4 years and most of his cabinet was the swamp. So this idea that he's never done it is insane. He literally was there and hired a bunch of poor choices after he took money. So it's like, if people could identify that and say, I like Trump better than DeSantis, but also I'm willing to stand up and challenge him the same way DeSantis, I wouldn't care if Trump won. It's like, whatever, see it how it is, vote for the guy you like best and stand firm for your values and use your voice and your power to hold the line when he does something that's unethical. But people can't do that with Trump. So it's like this is a fake movement, in my opinion. It's like everything is just against people who are against them and they just don't care. If you're willing to kick out Thomas Massie and Ron Paul out of your movement, really? Like Ron Paul's a bad guy now. Thomas Massie's a bad guy now. It's all fake, guys. But if people want to believe in it, then I don't know. I just feel like it's a giant trap at this point. It's like run people in circles, fleece them dry, use their emotions like leftists to just make them go rabid. And then 3 weeks later, you won't even care about what you were mad at. They just keep exploiting your anger. Get pissed, give me money. Get pissed, vote for me. Get pissed, try to kick Thomas Massie out. Get pissed, buy a Trump sweater. Get pissed, do this. It's like just getting pissed on loop. And then 3 weeks from now, people won't even remember what they were even mad about because adults shouldn't be angry and emotional. That's for children. That's for babies, right? If you're a grown man or a grown woman and you're voting for Donald Trump, you shouldn't be angry and emotional all the time or you're going to get exploited the same way people get exploited by BLM, the same way people get exploited by Democrats. They use your emotion and they use your anger and they use your weakness and your insecurities against you and fake the moral high ground to pretend like they're helping you when they're actually misleading you. That's what the Democrats do. Now, the MAGA movement is copy and pasting that agenda. They know you're angry. They know you're emotional. They know that Republicans are tapping into victim consciousness, like everything was taken from us. The country was taken from us. The election was taken from us. Our second term was taken from us. It's victim consciousness. I'm not saying you have to think that Democrats are ethical, but Republicans are professional victims now. They'll be like, the only, if Republicans were in the economy, it would be better. It wouldn't be better. Republicans also imploded the economy in 2020. Republicans were in on the vaccine scam. Republicans set you up. Trump set you up. I know people don't want to hear it, but that's what happened. So I find it just odd and bizarre that now the Trump movement is like, he's a victim of this, he's a victim of that, he's a victim of 2020, we're a victim, and we just want things and we deserve things, but we're not even willing to tell the truth about them. But I just feel like if I get angry and emotional at people like Thomas Massie, then that proves I'm a patriot because I want it really bad. You're getting exploited just like the left is exploiting you. And I'm starting to realize that this is what people want. This is why nothing changes in the country. I could sit here and tell people that you're a victim. You're a victim in America. You're a victim of the deep state. You're a giant victim. Or you could flip it, talk to someone from another country and realize you're blessed. Yes, there's a lot of things working against you, but also you have a petrodollar and an economy, and there's so much opportunity out there. But, that's not the type of stuff that wins political campaigns. People like to be victimized. So they're tapping into this, like, be angry and emotional about the economy. And people are so angry and emotional, they have Stockholm syndrome. They don't even realize that just like Biden screwing up the economy now, Trump and the Republicans imploded the economy in 2020, and inflation was always going to come. You can't run back into the hands of the person who did it and say that that's how you're going to fix it. That's called emotional. That's like, Democrat voters running into the hands of the Democrats thinking they're going to fix a problem that they helped cause. If that's what people want, that's what you're going to get. The elites scam you because you want to be scammed. The elites treat people like sheep because people act like sheep. And the left says, oh, no, the right's the sheep. And the right says, oh, no, the left's the sheep. But you're both sheep. You wear red, you wear blue. Your morals are better. You're better on the kid stuff. You're whatever. And then they just bash your heads together. So it's like it takes two to tango. And I know people don't want to hear this. So someone said, so you're saying that Obama's innocent? No. I mean, this is what I'm saying with, like, of course not. Where in this speech, I was just talking about Trump and Biden because of like when the lockdowns and the vaccine stuff was, but nowhere did I say that Obama was innocent. Like, people are so delusional that they can't think anymore. Like, it might be like a mental illness. Like, so you're saying you like Obama? It's like, no, like, what show are you watching? Well, I was told it's either the left or the right. And if you don't, it's like, dude, I feel like I'm teaching a kindergarten class. Like, what? Where was that said? That's like if I play a video of Andrew Tate and you're like, why do you support everything he's ever said and done? Where does it say that I've done that? Like, people can't handle any sort of like critical thinking skills. It's got to be like either this or this. And if it's not this, it's this. And I'm angry and I'm mad. And you're saying, it's like, well, that's why you're going to keep getting scammed on loop. Right now, the Republican Party seems like a giant Fed trap to me. It's like they keep exploiting your emotion and anger aimlessly, and the person who jacks you up the most is the one who's going to get the most attention, and they're going to be the ones to either make a lot off you or mislead you eventually. They want you to be angry. They want you to be emotional. They want you to not be able to think clearly. You think the establishment thinks you're a threat if you're trying to kick Thomas Massie and Rand Paul out of the party? Spoiler alert, there's a foreign country that really has a lot of influence in both parties, and Thomas Massie's the only one who consistently votes against that. He votes in America's interest. He's the only one. There's bills that have to do with Israel and anti-Semitism that the entire Congress votes for it, and Massie gets smeared as an anti-Semite for voting against it. And he always explains, I don't hate Israel and I don't hate anybody. This is unconstitutional and it doesn't make sense for any country. I'm against foreign aid. I'm against this. Thomas Massie's one of the only people in Congress who's not completely sold out. And this is your movement? You think you're not a threat to the establishment if you're mad at Ron Paul and Thomas Massie. You are the establishment. You are the rhino. You're the useful idiot. You're the controlled opposition. You're the overly emotional person who just wants and deserves everything, but isn't willing to think for it. And it's like, oh, I like this guy and I'm mad, so that must mean I deserve it. And anybody who disagrees with me is a traitor and a rhino. And now I'm a hypocrite. And now I have double standards. And now the guy that I like can't even hold up to the same standards as the other guy. I've never told anybody here to fully trust Ron DeSantis or not call stuff out. I just hold up a mirror to what you're saying. If you're mad at that and you won't vote for him because of that, What if I could prove that Trump also did that? Do you care? If you don't care, you don't care about that. Just be honest. Maybe you like Trump's personality. Maybe you like his jokes. Maybe you like his foreign policy. Just be honest. Your reasoning can't be, well, he endorsed Mitch McConnell, so he's a rhino. Trump also endorsed Mitch McConnell. That can't be your reason. It's not your reason. You're a liar. But this is these people is like they're so jacked up on what Trump says in these accounts like Cat Turd that they don't think anymore. And even asking them to think is like a bothersome moment for them. Like, the one guy who said literally like, every single person in DeSantis's administration is a Bush person. And it's like, well, Trump already was in office and hired a bunch of bad people. But in general, okay, you really think that every single person in his administration or in his campaign, every single person, he said, not like metaphorically, he's like all of them, every single one. I'll go, okay. So all of them, you believe all of them? Yes. And I go, that's not true, right? And he's like, no, it is true. Okay, then name 5. If his whole administration is all Bush people, name 5 of them. I can't. Well, name 3 of them. I can't. Name one. There's got to be one. Of course, there's one. There's got to be multiple people. It's like Karl Rove. Yeah, Karl Rove also worked on Trump's campaign. In 2020, he worked on Trump's campaign. So if that is a deal breaker, he's also already worked for Trump. That can't be your reason. And the more you do stuff like this, people can't handle it. They perceive it as like hate speech. Like you hate them. You hate this. I hate thinking. I hate getting challenged. I don't want to prove anything. I don't have to. I'm just going to repeat things that I've heard and not think about it. It's like, that's the zone people get in. And it's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. But there's a lane for that. And that's how I see things. And this is not pessimism by any means, but in this world, I'm not a victim. If I lose money, if something happens with this or that, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim to Facebook, even when they took 5-6 figures from me. I'm not a victim in this world. Okay. Neither are you. So when everybody on the left gets fooled by the left and everyone on the right thinks, I deserve a good America, I deserve this, I deserve that, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it just by dunking on the left. You're not going to get it by having double standards on the right. Liberty, freedom, prosperity, all these things are earned with hard work and objectivity and being able to call it out with both parties. I want to give one more example because it was like wild to me. I mentioned something about Big Pharma and how Trump got $1 million from Pfizer in 2016. And then right after he got that, he hired a pharmacy executive to run the health agencies at HHS. And the guy said to me, Anomaly, I get what you're saying, but do you think that $1 million is enough to, buy somebody's influence? And it's a good question. I said, yeah, I do think so, because if you count all the millions that he got, it was hundreds of millions of dollars. So I do think that the reason that they give money is to buy influence. And if you don't want their money, don't take it. But even Trump takes their money because he doesn't want to use his own. So yeah, I do think even $1 million can sway a decision, or else they wouldn't be just throwing it at everybody. They're throwing the money there to get something in return. And $1 million is a lot of money for even a billionaire. They're not spending their own money. But then he said this, and it was funny to me because it's just worth talking about. He said, don't you think Democrats would call out the corruption if it was true that Trump was like selling out to Big Pharma and taking money? Like, wouldn't Democrats call that out? And it's like, no. What planet are you think Democrats care if Big Pharma controls both parties? Big Pharma does control both parties. Big Pharma did control Trump's administration. Trump handed the keys to the castle to Big Pharma. He did that. It's real. I know people don't want to talk about it, but it happened. And people are so confused, like as if Democrats care about that. You think Democrats are going to blow the whistle on lobbying in Washington? Like they care about the military industrial complex and they're going to expose Big Pharma? The Democrats don't care because they're in on it too. But when people think in binaries, they don't understand this. It's like, everything is like a Marvel WWE movie. Like, wouldn't the left say something since they hate Trump? No, of course not. Why would they care about Big Pharma corruption? Like it's like a Kardashian show for adults who want to believe that they believe in something. Like they can't think straight. Oh, Obama. Oh, what about Obama? It's like, yeah, him too. It's like, it's so obvious that they just use like two things, two people, Trump DeSantis, Trump Biden, red, blue, this, that, and then there's some narrative around an arrest or this guy's that. And people buy into it as if it's like a soap opera, and then they can't see past it. If you like say something outside of the soap opera political show that they believe in, they like freak out at you. Like, I just want to believe. It's like, I'm sure you do, but that's why you keep getting scammed. So, just some things to think about. Appreciate you guys. It's going to be a trend the rest of the year, but I wanted to cover the Ron Paul coming to Thomas Massie's defense, because that just shows you that if Ron Paul were in office right now, the MAGA movement and the Twitter MAGA influencers who would literally swallow steak at Mar-a-Lago for the rest of their life in return for never having the same standards for Trump that they have for others, they're just literally hypocrites. They can't hold him to the same standards they hold everyone else to. They're trying to cancel Thomas Massie, and they would kick Ron Paul out of the party if he were there. Says a lot about who these people have become. I don't agree with it, and I've been vocal about that. God bless. Dreamer